Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the webinar series. Hope all of you are doing very well. Okay, let's start. Thank you, everybody, for joining back. Whoever are joining it as a first session, we will do a quick recap so that whatever we have covered, and this will also help even the previous attendees. So this is a three-part webinar series, and we started with our first part last week, which was on the 2nd of September. And today's session is the second part of the series, and then there's one more part that would be coming in next week, which is on 16th of September, same time. Already the invitations have been sent, so you can add to the calendar and be ready for the next one as well. And what we have done earlier was the wave one discovery process. That's what we have done. We'll do the recap of that. And then the last 10 minutes we'll leave it for the Q&A. So just a recap of the background. We have three organizers or co-presenters here. Myself, Imad Sayed, CIO of Pala Group, and we have Mr. Vijay Kumar, who is our principal advisor on the industry, as well as we have Mr. Ram Bhaskar, who is our Value Engineering and Business Transformation Director. And we clearly mentioned last week that definitely we want to be together, we want to help each other, we want to help our peers, we want to help other colleagues from the industry so that we all can overcome this crisis. And there was also a quote. Now, how can we actively engage with us during this entire webinar series and post that? We have our panelists. You can ask questions at any point in time. You can post the questions and one of the panelists would answer your questions. We have quite a good industry experience within our panelists, probably more than 200 years of experience across all of them. And then we would really like to know how you felt, what was the quality of this particular webinar. That's why a quick poll of 30 seconds, we will initiate that post 45 minutes of session, and then a survey of 2 minutes that you can answer so that we understand, we analyze ourselves, we look at the quality of the stuff, content that we have presented. And then at any point in time, if you would like to write to us, that's the information. And then there are a couple of flyers that you can download from the handout session, and which is under the GoToWebinar control panel. And then if you would like to receive a URL of this recording or the previous recording, please do let us know. In fact, we believe that there is a lot of value in the discovery as well as diagnostic processes, and that can set up quick wins for the industries who are actually suffering very badly. And then one more thing is that since we are also working with Gartner on several different fronts, Gartner has published the Hype Cycle for Data and Analytics Governance, as well as the Master Data Management 2020. So you can get a copy of that. Generally, to get a copy of that, you will have to pay. So this is absolutely free copy that you can download from pilagroup.com. The link is being posted. It's directly from the homepage. So that's actually a bonus for everybody, whoever is attending. So they can download the copy from there. And it actually gives the insights onto where exactly the data and analytics governance is going, and what are the trends in the industry, and how master data management can help us achieve our bigger challenges. Now, takeaways from this, which we have already mentioned last time, but I'm just putting it here so that whoever are joining for the first time, they would be able to understand. So the more focus is on the value chain, value management, and also to be able to ensure that the businesses transform themselves digitally. And then this was the first session. If you would like to get an access to the recording of it, you can follow us on Pala Group, or you can go to Pala Group LinkedIn page, and there are the instructions how you can get the copy of the recording or access to the recording. And what we have done last time is that industry revolutions we discussed last week, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we have also mentioned that industry 4.0 is completely around data. If there is no data, if you take away the data out of that industry revolution, then there is nothing significant in industry 4.0. So we have also presented some of the...
Your first screen.
Sorry?
Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Oh. Is it changing now? Sorry about that. Okay,
yes,
so we have also presented, thank you. We have also presented data and analytics trends. And also the predictions through 2024, that's what we presented. And this is also coming out of Gartner research. And then the key challenges, and then the entire value management. Our intention is not just to improve only one function, but all the interdependencies or cross functions of that. That's what is actually the entire objective of it. So that's about the value engineering. And then we proposed a complete roadmap, recommended roadmap to achieve the strategic benefits, and wave 1 through wave 7. Wave 1 is more about discovery. Wave 2 and 3 is about diagnostics of data as well as process. Wave 3 is actually design and develop the entire strategic objectives and the roadmap with the KPIs and KRAs. And wave 5 is how do we implement the same thing. And wave 6 is what are the performance benchmarkings that are available across the industry. And then wave 7 is to orchestrate what is the future of it. That's what we mentioned. And then supply chain management inventory optimization session 2 starts now. Now during this session we will go through the wave 2 and 3, more focus on wave 2 and 3. Now wave 1 was how can we embark on the journey of a discovery phase. Wave 2 and 3 is what exactly we need to discover, how exactly we need to discover, and how we can utilize that entire outcome of the discovery and diagnostics to build the roadmaps. That's wave 2 and 3. So when we look at the wave 2 and 3, in this case, we have different components here. One is especially for the inventory optimization. The first one is data health assessment, wherein we will look at the entire health of the data. And earlier it used to be, like, okay, I have 10 terabytes of data. Oh, you have got very good size of database. But these days it's actually lean and healthy data is actually what is running the enterprises. Not the bulky, not the volume. It's actually the clean data, lean data, and healthy data. So we will look at the qualitative assessment of the entire data, and then the process maturity model, wherein the whole supply chain maturity we will look at. And you can actually put down any function, such as it could be product lifecycle management, or customer fulfillment, or demand management, or supply operations, or supply network, or performance enablement, anything, any function. So we have taken a couple of functions here, or few functions here, and we have plotted what is the maturity of that on a graph. And then the third one, which is very, very critical for the inventory optimization. Though the first two things, generally you do it for any kind of diagnostics, but the third one is specifically for improving the inventory optimization. What are the inventory optimization techniques? How do you actually identify the criticality of it? How do you identify, the entire ranking of that materials as well as the assets? That's what we look at it, because it also has an impact on other functions. Because remember what we said that it's a value chain. Value management is nothing but just not improving just the individual efficiency and effectiveness of a function, but also the cross functions. That's what is all about. So we are going to look at quite a few material assessment for the criticality, or assets assessment for the criticality. We'll go through that. And then if you look at there's a lot of value in this wave 2 and 3. Wave 2 and 3 are actually focusing on exactly establishing where an organization is, exactly establishing how mature the processes are, how mature the data is, whether we can take the same data and build our future on that or not, because data is going to be the foundation for a lot of businesses. And that's what we will be looking into for the wave 2 and 3. That's why wave 2, and if we do not perform the wave 2 and 3, then wave 5, 6 and 7 are 4, 5, 6, 7 are actually meaningless. The reason is that based on which facts, based on which factors, based on which dimensions, based on what analysis are we actually proposing the roadmap. So that is why wave 2 and 3 are actually the foundation for the business. And if you would like to know more about it, if you really would like to talk to us one-on-one on that, okay, you can type in the questions to the panelists. They would answer most of the questions around wave 2 and 3. Now next one is quality assessment. Now when we talk about data quality assessment, is it just data quality assessment anybody can do it without having a benchmark, without having a standard? No, absolutely not. It has to have certain standards linked with that. So that is the reason we always have advocated that ISO 8000 is the right standard for the data quality. And all the data quality dimensions are actually derived out of ISO 8000 standard, such as, be it completeness, accuracy, representation, accessibility, precision, or consistency, whatever are mentioned on this particular slide. The entire data quality assessment need to be done where applicable, where it makes sense. We must apply that particular dimension onto the data. But if you look at the entire data, ISO 8000 data quality, this is actually the data quality standard for any information quality or any data quality. So that's the ISO 8000. Under ISO 8000, we have got several parts out of it. General principles, which are part 1, 2, and 8, which are already published. You can download, you can go through that, or you can contact one of our panelists. They will be able to talk more about these parts. And part 60 is the DQ management, which is the data quality management. If you look at the data quality management, how the data quality is managed, how the data quality is referred, how the data quality is assessed, everything is there in the process assessment. And that's why data and processes can never be taken apart. They need to actually live with each other all the time. So that's the part 60. Under part 60, we have 61, 62, and 63. And then DQ assessment, if you really would like to do the assessment of it, which is data profiling, data rules, applying the data rules, which is nothing but the governance rules or the business rules. That is where the part 80 is making sense. And then when it comes to the master data, there are certain standards which are designated for the master data, whereas the other parts are for the entire data. It is also on different data sets. But master data, we have part 100. 100 is a long series where we have 115, which is exchange of quality identifiers, 116 legal entity identifiers, 120, which is the provenance, 130, which is the accuracy, 140, which is the completeness. You can see that some of these dimensions that are mentioned here are actually published as well. So you can read through that, or you can contact us. We'll be able to share more information on that, because we have been implementing ISO 8000 data quality solutions all along for the last 10 to 12 years since its inception. And then there is part 110, which is absolutely critical for digital businesses, which is the exchange of the characteristic data, not just the characteristic data class, characteristics data, any data sets, where in the syntax, semantic encoding, and conformance to data specifications or data requirements is mandatory. That's what is the part 110. So whatever we are proposing as part of the data quality assessment, everything is built around the standards. Everything is built. Now, if you look at some of the graphs, I would just run through some of the graphs quickly because it won't be practical to explain each and every data quality dimension there. But our systems, we have got the systems, or you can subscribe to those systems. You can load your data yourself and then look at the data quality dashboard. This is actually some SAP data. So what's exactly are the material types there? What is the data completeness for that particular data set? You can see that there are some missing values. So this is how the profiling is done. What are the top 5 commodities there, and what are the top plants there, and then what are the UAM counts there, and then same manufacturer, and then unknown part numbers. You see, it is in-depth analysis of reference data, referential data, representation of the data, accuracy of it, correlation of it, coordinates of it. Everything is actually presented, and once you click on that graph, you would be able to actually see what are those records that has got that exact symptoms or problems. So this is actually the data quality assessment, which is built on the previous slide, which is ISO 8000 principles. And then the second one, because we said that we will do the data quality assessment and then also material criticality assessment. Now, with respect to the material criticality assessment, this is purely related to SCM, supply chain management and inventory optimization, if you look at this. So from the inventory optimization perspective or supply chain management perspective, what are actually the goals of any organization is that we need to have the right quality of the material or the item, right quantities, right from the right source, at the right price, in right time, at right place. So that's what all those rights are. So it's the quality, quantity, source, price, time, and place. Those are the factors. How do we determine all of it? Because right source, okay, it's nothing to do with inventory, but it is to do with the procurement. But that's where the whole value chain is coming in. That's where the whole value management is coming in. So the sourcing information is also analyzed. Okay, right quantity. Okay, whether we have the right quantity of min-max levels, ROPs or not, yes, that's where exactly the analysis comes in. We will see, how the analysis would help us determine the right quantities, right quality, okay, quality of the data, whether it's the right material that's coming in or not, and what is the lead time of that, and are we getting it in the right time or not, and right place. All those rights we will look at it. Now, when we do the material criticality assessment, we perform one or several of these analysis. The first one is ABC analysis, and ABC analysis is very simple, which is based on the spend, year on year spend. For the last 3 years, you can take it, or for the last 5 years, and we will be able to establish what is our spend, which are the high spend materials, A category, B category, and C category. That's one. And then the FMSN analysis, which is the fast movers, medium movers, slow movers, and non-movers. And this is also important. The reason is that if those are the non-moving materials, then why are we keeping them in our inventory and increasing the hoarding of that? Okay, are we really spending right time on those non-moving items? If those are the slow movers, then have we adjusted the quantities for that? Have we optimized the economic order quantity or not? All that analysis can be done, and this is based upon the history. This is based upon all the transaction. Remember what we said last week? We said that when we do the discovery phase, we put down all the questions, and these are actually the answers for those questions, or these are actually the value drivers for those questions. And next comes the XYZ analysis, which is based on the inventory hoarding. And where are we hoarding the inventory? Which items are hoarding more value? That's one. And then VED analysis, again, VED analysis based on criticality of them, whether it is vital, whether it is essential or not. All those things are mentioned, can be derived out of the VED analysis. And then HML analysis. Okay, this is on the based of unit cost of the material. Okay, which one is having the highest cost, which one is having the medium cost, low cost. So that's the HML analysis. And then SDE analysis, which is based on lead time. So certain parts, we need to keep it in inventory because the lead time is maybe 6 months. But maybe certain parts can be easily available. Within 2 weeks, you would be able to get it because those can be even bought out of the shelf as well. So this actually, the analysis will give us, a handle or a value driver to actually include as a parameter within our economic order quantity. So this is all we have to do based on the data, and it's really not very complex. What is the problem? The problem here, the challenge, what we have faced, what industry is facing is that right data is not available. The reason for that is the ERP systems are not implemented in the right way. Many a times we have seen that the consumption data is not available. Many a times we have seen that the lead time data is not available because it is not captured. So that's why, if you can remember, last time we said that when we were presenting the value management, we very clearly specified that value management has to be built on the value chain, and value chain is including everybody within the department, within the function, also across the different functions as well. So if you look at the challenges what we have faced in the past several years is the non-availability of the data. Only when you configure the system properly, then you would be able to generate this kind of data. So that's also something that we have to look as part of our process analysis, whether the process for issuing of an item is actually capturing the right data or not, because our data stewards, our information stewards, our data entry guys, those are vital, because if the process is not enforcing them to capture the data, we'll not be able to derive any of this data. So that's the entire material criticality analysis. Now, if you look at it, what are we trying to define here from the function? You can see that business criticality, business spend, lead time in S2P cycles, which is source to procure cycles, source to pay cycles, and then inventory levels. This is what we will determine out of the material criticality analysis. Once we determine that, actually pave the way for optimize supply chain, not just the inventory optimization, but also optimize supply chain, because it is touching the factors of sourcing, it is touching the factors of category management, it is touching the factors of procurement, warehousing, maintenance, everything it is touching. So that's where the whole value chain is getting established. That was on the material criticality. Now, if you look at equipment criticality, because material is becoming critical because it is used in an equipment where it is critical, or that particular equipment is critical. So if you go one level above, which is to identify the equipment criticality analysis, wherein we look at the entire business, the entire production of the plant, and then also the maintenance of the plant or the maintenance of the assets, and then the EHS, which is absolutely important in several industries, environment, health and safety, and then the human capital. So if we analyze these functions, if you look at it, so overall equipment efficiency, if you look at it, availability times performance times quantity. So that's how you get to the OEE, which is the overall equipment efficiency. And then the COM, which is the component of maintenance. Okay, replacement asset value, how frequently are we replacing it, are we doing maintenance on regular basis, all that can be derived. And then also from the MRO spend perspective, because MRO is actually having the major spend in case of asset critical environments or plants. So that's how you get to it. And then you would be able to determine which of those equipments are actually critical, which of them are semi-critical, which of them are normal. And even we have seen in the industry that even this criticality is also not established. If the criticality is not established, then we will not be able to derive the right parameters. We will not be able to optimize the inventory values. We will not be able to optimize the inventory quantities, and that's where the entire working capital is actually hitting the balance sheet. So whether that entire maintenance is function location based, whether it is a preventive maintenance, all that would need to be studied. And once we study that, we will know what kind of equipments are critical and what kind of those spare parts are becoming critical for those equipments. Based upon that, we'll be able to evaluate the entire economic order quantity, EOQ, or inventory optimization parameters are those things that we need to put down as part of the formula. How you do it? You can do a planning session where in what exactly is required, and this is again direct extraction of the data from the system. It is not something somebody is manipulating it. It is 99.9%. It is the direct extraction of the data. We would give the table names from where the data need to be extracted, be it SAP or Oracle or any other system, and we will be able to analyze the data based upon some assumptions which would be set up as part of our workshop. And then we do the data collection and analysis, hypothesis and recommendation, and then we will review and approve between ourselves and our customers that this is what is the way forward for the equipment criticality ranking and establishment. And then comes, if we have the right data, you would see that what we can really generate. If we have the right data, it's actually one of the core foundations of any business these days. If you look at this, if you have the right data, you would be able to generate transactional reports, where exactly this material is lying, which plants it is, what is the, from where it has been issued, what are the storage location for that, what is the MRP, has it been increasing or reducing, and what is the BOM info, where exactly this particular spare is fitting in, where exactly in which warehouses this is available, change history, how many times it has undergone change, and what were those changes, and who are those suppliers from whom this particular material was procured, and the spend analysis, how much have we spent in the last 1 year or whatever it is. And these kind of beautiful analytics can be drawn if we have the right data. And majority of the cases, the data is not right, and that is how that is how we identify as part of our diagnostic process, that whether the data quality is there or not, whether the right data is there or not, whether the completeness is there or not. And then you can see, you can build any kind of reports, how many items are getting created, changed, or for what reason, whatever it is, all that information can be derived. But for this, we need to have the right metadata. For this, we need to have the right master data. If we do not have the right meta and master data, then all our transaction data, as I mentioned last week, is going to go for a toss. And then if we have all the data available in the systems, it's just a matter of time to configure the systems or configure these kind of tools, which are also available on cloud, wherein you would be able to actually plug in or build an integration with your ERP systems, or build an integration with your operational systems and pull in the data directly. And in the system itself, ABC analysis can be performed. No need of any Excel spreadsheets, no need of anything. We'd be able to connect directly because we have the connectors, the global connectors, universal connectors that can connect to any of the ERP systems, and we can pull in this data and analyze this data. Analysis and pulling in the data is one part. The other one is the bigger part, is the interpretation of that, which is nothing but the report writing of that, hypothesis on that. And not only that, what are the recommendations, or what are the strategies that we can derive out of this data. But for that, we need to have the right data. So where we are heading now, if we really want to perform the entire inventory optimization, we'll have to make sure that we have the right data. If we do not have the right data, let us correct the data first. Once we correct the data and map it with the right meta and master data, all the transactions get mapped to meta and master data, then we'll be able to derive this kind of analytics. However, at any point in time, we can run these kind of analytics by connecting to the ERP systems in the backend to give the visibility of what are the gaps, what is missing, what is surplus, what is not, and all those analysis can be actually given. You can see the material spend analysis, cost center spend, vendor spend, all of that. So that was on the data analytics. Now let's look at the process maturity assessment. Now, when we look at the process maturity assessment, in this case, what we are looking at is how mature is the process. Because when anybody is implementing ERP system, there's a lot of effort that goes into developing the business processes. And many a times the consultants, the implementers, or the SIs, they design the end-to-end business processes. But the gap would be that when it gets implemented, whether exactly the same process is implemented or not. Maybe somebody might have compromised on something. Maybe somebody might have found, a quick way to improve the efficiency, but they are actually skipping an important step or the activity that could create different events to give us insights. So SIs generally, 99.9%, they actually design the right processes. They actually capture everything, because in the blueprinting and design phase, SIs take a lot of time and effort. However, once that is implemented, seldom the industries or the organizations go back and look at the performance of that process, unless there are huge alarming indications that are coming in. There are failures, the transactions are not generating properly, or the reports are not correct, or there's a lot of cash flow, or the capital expenses, or even regular expenses. Unless all these alarming conditions or alarming situations are prompted or triggered, nobody is looking at their process assessment again, process maturity again. But we also know that every 3 years, 3 to 5 years, the process need to be relooked at, because 3 years ago, whatever the tools, technologies, or whatever the methodologies, formulae, whatever the value engineering principles were there, some of them have evolved, some of them have changed. So we have to go back to the process assessment again, at least every 3 to 5 years. And that's where the entire industry is changing. And if any organization would like to play in the digital market, or in the digital space in future, they would definitely have to look at the processes, because this is the era of RPA, robotic process automation. And then in this robotic process automation, there are certain processes that you can automate it. No need of any manual intervention, because those formulas, those decisions can be derived based upon the data that is inputted, that is being input, and also the values that are validated. So the decision making power can be put into the processes. The decision making power can also be embedded within the systems, and that's what is this era. So now if you look at the supply chain maturity assessment, or the process maturity assessment, in this case, what are the factors or what are the functions on which the assessment is done here? Product lifecycle management, strategic governance, performance enablement, supply network design, supply operations, and then customer fulfillment, demand management. Now, not necessarily all these 6 dimensions or factors are the functions that we would like to do. Maybe you can plot different things. You can plot different stuff, such as you can say that compliance, MRO spend, overall equipment efficiency, EHS. You can plot any other. But the bottom line, what we are trying to showcase here is that take any functions that are vital for your business and look at those processes, introspect those processes, go through in detail, step by step of that processes. If you don't do that, we can say that, okay, X has implemented this, Y has implemented it, but at that point in time when it was implemented, that might have been good. But as the time passes, the process need to be relooked at, process need to be improved. There are a lot of automation points that we can integrate it, and there are a lot of integration points that you can bring in from the cross domains or cross functions into it. So in case of tailor-made supply chain maturity, any function, if you look at the maturity of that, cost of procurement, you can put down that, or cost of operations, compliance and regulatory requirements, or supplier performance management. Any function we can evaluate based upon this value engineering model, wherein we can assess a specific business function with regards to its process performance, process enablement, process maturity, and process value chain. Now, if you look at a specific business process maturity. If you look at it, what are those steps? And this is what we have been practicing. This is what we have been applying, and we see a lot of tangible results out of it, because this determines the next step, which is the design and developing the roadmap. Now, if you look at the first one, process maturity assessment or business process maturity assessment, the first thing that one need to do is acquire all the BPMN and flow diagrams. Now, many of the SIs, I must say that 9.9 out of 10 SIs would actually hand over all the BPMN flow diagrams, be it data flow diagram, be it information flow diagram, be it architecture diagram, everything is actually handed over, but it is being, somewhere thrown out in the trash, or once the implementation team leaves, nobody has any information on that. So that acquiring BPMN and flow diagrams is important. When we talk about that, there are diagrams that are at a high level, which is at organization level or org level. There are individual detailed at a functional level, each function or each department level or each process level. And then also there are certain which are cross function level, and there are also information flow diagrams from which system to which system, how the information is flowing, and data flow diagrams. Don't misunderstand that information flow as well as data flow both are same. No, information flow is pointing out what systems that are involved and how the information is flowing across those systems. Data flow diagram shows what exactly is the data element, which data element, how it is impacting each other, in terms of entire the flow. So those are the different things. And many times when we ask for this, even in our business consulting, they say that, oh, sorry, we don't have it. Yeah, it used to be there. We have only the PNID diagrams. We don't have this diagram. We don't have that diagram. If we do not have it, then we need to sit with the process owners to design what is the as is. Unless we design that, we'll not be able to analyze what is the as is. But 9 out of 10 times, these diagrams are all, always handed over by the SIs. But those are not in possession of the right people, and not many people even know that what should have been the process flow, what was designed, and what is it. Then the next one is acquire the documentation, because for each process there is a standard operating procedure or standard operating guidelines. We need to acquire that information, because we are not just trying to improve only the inventory function. We are trying to improve everything that is a cross function to the inventory function. That is why we will have to look at the entire standard operating procedures or guidelines. And in that strategy documents, because when the SIs would have implemented that particular business process, they would have said that initially we will give a little bit of relaxation on these rules, but after 2 years we need to strengthen these things or tighten these screws or tighten these gaps. But nobody would have gone back and implemented those things, but eventually the intention was exactly the same thing. Or maybe SI would have said that we are going to enforce for the first year, but after that we will make sure that this gets automated. So nobody knows what exactly was the strategy when the ERP systems were implemented, when those business processes were implemented. So that's where the entire strategy documents are required, policy governance structures are required, because if we want our organizations to survive in this digital era and thrive, our businesses digitally, we definitely will have to go and introspect our processes, business processes. And then functional and technical documentation and rest of the things, tools, formulas, calculators, or anything, or any estimation models that have been put down as part of the documentation, either implemented or not implemented, but we'll have to look at that. And then the third one is facts analysis. So the first two phases was actually to acquire the information, but the third one is to analyze them. When we analyze the SOPs, when we analyze the strategies for stock taking or conditioning, stock conditions, or picking and packing or binning or whatever it is, all those we will be able to see what was it earlier, what is it now. And that's the gap. And those gaps need to be fulfilled based upon today's situation, not based upon what was derived or documented at that point in time. That was the reason for us to actually look at what was actually mentioned, what was the deterministic, and what is actually the pragmatic that we will have to put down. And then review of existing inventory parameters like safety stock, reorder point. And many times what we have also seen is that these calculators are built in Excel, and that Excel is actually being floated from one person to other person or one stakeholder to other stakeholder. But why can't we put down that Excel calculation directly into the system so that we get out of the dependency on the people rather than putting focus on the processes? So, and all these fact analysis we do. And also one of the important things in the fact analysis is that we need to assess the stakeholders, because many a times it is the stakeholders, they are not doing their job properly, they are not capturing the right information, they are bypassing the workflows, they are bypassing the process flows, or they are trying to manually add some value so that they can manipulate the calculations. And that's where we need to put down the restrictions that everything is system driven. And then when it comes to the process analysis, we need to compare prescriptive versus descriptive. Prescriptive, how it was prescribed. Descriptive, how is it running now, and what is the gap, and then why exactly it is running now, what is the rationale behind that, what is the explanatory analysis for that. That also we need to capture. Probably that equipment was made critical at that point in time, but now it is not anymore critical. That's why certain processes or sub processes might have been bypassed. But that is the visibility that needs to come in. And analyze workflows, data flows, and information flow with respect to the business processes. And then the fifth one is the diagnosis reports. And when it comes to the diagnosis reports, lot of reports will come out. It's the summary that we will have to put down to the management, to the executive management, so that it can be studied, it can be understood, and it has to be segregated into short term, medium term, and long term strategies. And based upon that, the recommendations can be derived and move forward with it. So once you do the entire data analysis, once we do the entire process analysis, then we will have a strategy for data, then we will have a strategy for process. What are the strategies for the data and processes? Let's look at that. When we look at the data strategy, we have put down 1, 2, 3 bullets, and then process. Can you see that both data and processes are interlinked? Process cannot be kept away from the data, or vice versa. So data and process strategy need to go hand in hand. So there are 3 strategies for data, 3 for process. Now let's look at it. Now, when we analyze it, when we have done the diagnosis of it, there are obviously 2 things, minimum 2 things that we do. One is, what is the corrective measure, what is the preventive measure, and where exactly we would like to. So that's vision. So corrective measure, preventive measure, going forward, and what should be our vision, what should be our vision of the organization. Now, when we look at data, there are issues with the data itself. It does not have the classification, it does not have the metadata, and you are unable to generate the meaningful information out of the transactions. And that's where we know that we need to the easiest thing is embark on data harmonization. We should internally, externally, but many a time it's been outsourced. The reason
Mr. Imad, I'm not sure if you hear us, but we've lost you.
Am I back now?
Yes.
Panelists, am I back now?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry for that. I don't know. There would have been some interruption. Sorry about that. So when it comes to the, the foundation elements that we need to establish, one is the corrective measure, the other one is a preventive measure. In terms of the corrective measure, embark on a data harmonization project. In terms of the preventive measure, it's actually the taxonomy and classification that need to be implemented so that the categorization can be done, so that the proper sourcing can be done, so that proper procurement channels can be established, our supply chain channels can be established, our supply chain network can be established, and then establish single version of truth. And then going forward is establishing single version of truth. And the second point is data analytics. Analytics is essential. If we do not have the analytics, we will not have business insights. If we do not have the right business insight, we will not be able to make the quick decisions. If we would like to maybe increase something or decrease something, or we want to do a change within our business strategy, we need the analytics, and analytics provides the comprehensive insights of the business performance. And for that, we need to map whatever need to be corrected. We need to map meta and master data with the transaction data, whatever has happened for the past 3 years at least, and then going forward align to capture the correct data. And then vision should be established data analytics platform. And the third one is that embrace the data science vision, because in the next 2 to 4 years data science is going to play vital in every business. And if your business is not digitally transformed by then we will not be able to leverage the capabilities, leverage the promising capabilities of the data science into that. And that's where even Palak has invested huge into the artificial intelligence and ML models, wherein you would be able to optimize the inventories, wherein you would be able to optimize the inventory based upon the previous trends and the historic data. And then fourth one, from the process side, it's refine and redefine the process models. This is very, very important. We need to simplify, because maybe those processes were implemented long ago. We need to simplify and automate the core processes and workflows, and make sure that the decision making is collaborative rather than an individual input. It must be cross domain or cross function collaborative decision making. And then the third one is the focus on user experience. We do not have to present all the fields of a transaction to the user that is capturing. Only what is necessary for that particular user, let's show only that. From the process perspective as well, let's capture only that, because here less is more, not more is more. It's a less is more, because we'll be personalizing that. And information stewards, we need to think from the information stewards and the process owners perspective, because they are the real contributors. We always try to see that, oh, this technology is good, let's throw the technology, let's throw these user interfaces, but we have never personalized that. That's the reason that they do not take initiative. They do not feel encouraged to capture the data, because it's a lot of data that is not placed in the right places as well. And then information quality is vital for smart systems. If we want to survive, if we want to thrive in this industry 4.0, we need to have the information quality, not data quality, information quality, because data will be transformed into information, and that information would have some quality that would drive the smart systems going forward. So process and data maturity assessments for the improvement of the information quality. And the last but not the least, orchestration of the data. We will talk about that also in the next session. But orchestration of the data, that would be the roadmap to establish going forward. If it is not tomorrow, but as part of strategy in the next 2 to 3 years, each organization need to establish a model of orchestration, which would be data quality hub going forward. So thank you very much for listening to this, Mr. Vijay and Ram. Would you like to throw some light on this particular slide quickly for a minute each?
Okay. My input in the data and process strategy is slightly a little different, in the sense the accuracy of the master data and the quality and completeness of the master data opens up another major business opportunity, which is online transactions, including business to business data transfer. Now, there are two issues which comes when companies try to use business to business automated data and automated transactions. Considering, let's say that we would like to have an automated purchase order generated in our system. Now, when we generate the automated purchase order, there is no one to check whether the specifications for this particular item is matching with what exactly is required for the operations. So we can imagine in such a scenario, an automated purchase order goes and the specifications were different and the material lands up at the place. Probably it could lead to production stoppages or even what you call production safety risk also. So one of the major inputs I would say is the quality of master data opens up a whole lot of business opportunities for online business transfer, as well as collection of exchange of data between two companies, between customers and company, or between vendors and the company, thereby reducing manual operations, reducing manual paperwork. Probably we can have the online invoicing and processing of payment also. All these automations are possible, and cost reduction which will come up due to that, provided our master data is clean, accurate, and totally dependable. This is one of the issues which I would like to communicate to all the participants, how the master data helps us to leverage the business and also ensure competitiveness. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You see, that's where everybody is saying that data is the new oil, data is the new gold, and everybody would like to capitalize on that. Once we have the right foundation for the data, master data, you can actually, grow your organization multifold. Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Mr. Ram.
Thanks, Imad, and thanks, Mr. Vijay, even. So just to add on to what Mr. Vijay was talking about, today you look at any industry experts or analysts, if you talk about it, they always talk about extended supply chain. They talk about multi-enterprise inventory optimization, the supply chain end-to-end visibility. It is not just your peers, the customers, or the business partners in the value chain, but end-to-end, right? When you talk about 7 layers of supply chain, right, from customer to your company, and then your vendor, the standardization of data, right, the right structuring of data and visibility across the globe, which is basically talking about real-time analytics and real-time what you call service enablement by your customers or even your vendors, right, for fulfillment of entire supply chain. The master and metadata plays a very pivotal role, and that's where the automation and integration of process with data has to be really looked upon very seriously by the organizations, and our industries have been focusing upon it. And that's my 2 cents getting into the next webinar session. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ram. There are certain questions. Shall we look at those questions? One of the questions is that if you do not have the historic data, how can we derive the right material criticality assessment? One of you would like to take that, Ram or Vijay?
Okay. When we do not have the backup data or a historic data, especially for the reliability of each equipment, one of the parameters which could be used is an analysis which is based on the manufacturer's reliability and the mean time between breakdown as provided by the manufacturer. Manufacturers generally provide what is the mean time MTBF for a particular equipment, and manufacturers also provide a list of necessary critical items which should be kept in stock, which is called as operational or emergency spare parts, which are recommended by the company, because they know that if it fails, the equipment will stop. So they will recommend a list of a set of parts which should be retained. So these are the two parameters which you can pick up directly from the manufacturer. So what is the reliability index? What is the mean time between the failures? And what are the operational spare parts which are required on depending upon the spare parts requirement? The next input could be the regular consumables. Like every manufacturer will provide the input that every 5,000 hours, please replace the gasket, or every 5,000 hours, please replace the engine oil. All these kind of inputs from the manufacturer can become one of the primary inputs for deciding on the criticality and thereby the criticality of the part. Coming to the second part, every maintenance engineer has got a third sense. He says, yes, this is in my experience, I have found that invariably this part fails in many of the installations, because whatever analysis we do, whatever excellent installation we do, there could be some vibration. So during vibration, these fail. So he may recommend that, okay, let us keep this part also, because from my expert opinion, I feel that we must keep this part. These are the initial step when a plant is handed over and starts operation. At that time, clearly you have no historic data of failures. Once you stop the initial material requirement by these processes of OEM supplies and expert opinion within the company, then you ensure that you will now capture all the requirements coming ahead and then compare, and then you can revisit all the spare parts which are required to be kept based on your data, which will get accumulated over a period of 2 or 3 years. Initial 2-3 years, advantages are initial 2-3 years, the failure rates are also comparatively less for plants, plus the OEM recommended spare parts, plus there could be also a guarantee period wherein the OEM ensures that immediately they are replaced. So guarantee and warranty replacement of 1 or 2 years is also another way of attempting to cover the criticality issues during the initial phases when we do not have the historic data. I hope I cleared that point.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. There's one question is that would you kindly share all the tools that Pilak have developed or provided for inventory optimization? One of the panelists, please connect with the user and attendee and then discuss that. Are there any questions? Any further questions?
Yes, Imad, I will take it up with Mr. Asad. I have responded.
Okay. Thank you. So if you do not have any further questions, we would like to see you next week to conclude this webinar series, and wherein we will have a look at what is the performance matrix, what is the industry workbench, and then what exactly are the business cases, are the use cases wherein we have saved around 10% of the inventory cost. Thank you very much.